what are your ideas for potentially helping with this issue?
Right. Another, very a good point. There was a YouTube video that just came out from the channel called About Here, and the title is "Why Did Kids Stop Going to School on Walking and Bike?" And I'm paraphrasing the title. So it talks about how we have a society where parents wake up in the morning, rush with the kids, get them fed breakfast, and then just load everybody up, and then you just drive to school, drop them off, and then you continue on to go to work, and then you come back in the afternoon, pick them up, and go home. When in fact that there's all these families with kids who live less than, I think the figure is like about a mile away from schools that they attend, and yet they are driven to school. And here's this kind of interesting experience that I've had. When I first started just delivering our kids to the school, to the front door on my bike, in the beginning I used to get a lot of looks, and kids are, I love kids, and they would always look at it, they was like, wow, what is that? Look at that, mama. And then they would ask, and some kids would be brave enough to come up and ask, where did you get that bike? And it's always been such a pleasant experience to interact with the kids asking questions. And even some of the parents came up to us and asked, like, how do you do it? And over time, what I've seen is there's more and more families actually doing, I know at least 3 or 4 other families who just ride with their kids, either the kids riding on the parents' bike, or the kids just riding on their own. And it always makes me feel good that kids are able to build that skill to just get to on their own power and get there, get to school and go home. And now all of this has to come with safe school areas, school zones, and that's one thing. If the parents and they don't feel safe letting the kids ride their bikes, then they won't do it. If the kids don't, because if there are a lot of cars and if they're not paying attention, that's dangerous.
Right.
So as a BPG member, that's one thing that I always think about. That are the areas around school, essentially the school zones, is it safe for kids to walk and bike around, either along bike path or the pedestrian on the sidewalk. And for the most part, there's a lot of awareness. Essentially, any parents that I've talked to until now, they always talk about that. They would like to do more of this, but then there are some barriers. There are some lanes that are not connected, or there are just way too many cars around to feel safe. So these are the issues that we need to address.
Do you run into, with your own experience taking your kids and that sort of thing, do you run into unsafe situations every now and then, or is it totally fine?
That's actually an interesting point. When I started, so this goes out beyond just dropping our kids off at school. When I started, a lot of our friends, when I tell them that I take our kids on my bike to go get to school, and they're like, aren't you worried about all these student drivers in town and their lifted trucks and blind spots? And so I was worried, and I have to say, this is something that I have to give credit to my wife, who is not a cyclist the way that I am. I joke that between the two of us, I do all the cycling. And so she used to be very concerned that is my husband doing is he doing the right thing? Like, are our kids gonna be okay? She used to be worried, but then over time she essentially started trusting me and trusting the city more, the drivers, because that's been my experience, that in the past almost 4 years, I have hardly ever had any close calls, so to say.
Good.
I had never had any, thankfully, knock on wood, I haven't had any incidents yet. But by far, I have to, this is something that I really have to thank the drivers of this town for, that the drivers don't get enough credit in this town. That for me, it's been positive experience that, that when drivers see kids on bikes, first reaction I think is, it kind of goes like this. This is how I see it. A bit of a surprise that, this is not something you see normally, followed by just courtesy and generosity. So coming down Welsh Avenue, I'm riding on the bike lane, And by far, all these cars passing us would give us such wide berth, and they are doing the because there's enough room to go around, and they know there are kids kids on the bike, so they're really generous and courteous. And on top of that, when we come to a intersection, people usually they always pass us to go by and then be really nice to us. And I've lost counts of how many. This is the funny part. A random truck would stop next to him, and then they would roll down the window, and they would just give me, "That's cool, dude. That's awesome." It's such a just random compliments from people. I just think it's just nice to see families and kids on bike, and it's been very positive experience.